Alright guys, and welcome to another video. Today we are doing a rogue deep dive for TBC. I'm joined here obviously by Staydown, who's an absolute rogue oracle. Is going to be teaching you a lot of crazy tricks to massively increase your DPS in TBC. So let me run through what we're going to talk about in the video. So firstly, we're going to go through all the basics, what weapons to use, what poisons to use. We'll go through the best in slot talent build, and we'll possibly talk about some alternative builds that you can go for. Then we'll go through the stat priority, precisely which stats give the most amount of DPS. We'll go through the starter gear that you can get from quests, pre-dungeon gear. Then we'll go for the actual pre-raid best in slot. We'll go through best in slot enchanting and gemming priority. We'll go through best in slot professions, consumables, the rotation, and then we'll talk through, like I said before, the advanced little tricks to push your DPS even further. And lastly, talk about reputation priority. So it's quite a lot to go through, quite a lot to keep us busy. Right, so actually, first of all, let's stay down, introduce himself just a little bit.
Okay, well, my name is Staydown. I've played private servers for a large number of years. I've played a lot of classes, but Rogue has always been the one that I've kind of gone back to, and that is my main. Always will be my main. I like having these kind of classes where not a lot of it is expected of you, and if you actually do somehow do well, people are always surprised, and yeah, that's kind of what I look for. Other than that, I am a content creator on silentshadows.net, which is like the Rogue TBC community. And I'm a streamer,
Right,
and that's
so
me.
yeah, we're going to be plugging the Silent Shadows website quite a lot during the stream, by the way, guys. You will find it in the link of this video, if you're watching on YouTube. So, first thing, the absolute basics, should we be, as a rogue, should we go for maces? Should we go for swords? Should we go for, well, we can't use axes yet, obviously no axes, and then obviously what poisons should we actually be using on these weapons?
Okay, so I'll start with the poisons one. You want to use both. And again, as I mentioned before, this is going to be in terms of a raid environment. Once you have enough haste, you're going to pivot away from deadly in offhand and switch to instant poison, because instant poison does more damage the more haste you have, which means that it will overall overtake deadly poison. So once you get a hand on Dragon Spine Trophy that drops from Gruul in tier 4, you will be switching from instant poison, from deadly poison to instant poison.
All right. I didn't know that. That's cool.
In terms of mazes and stuff, I just learned a few minutes ago that apparently Blizzard said that drums are not going to require leatherworking anymore, which means that you have one profession to kind of clear up, so to say. You do early on want to be leatherworking for the primal strike, but the drum is not requiring leatherworking actually means that you can kind of skip the primal strike and kind of play around with the spec a little bit. With the gear set a little bit. You can go for maces, but personally, I'm not a big fan. Mostly because they are about, I think it's 1% better than Blink Strike Season 1 weapons, and even Latros and Offhand, depending on what kind of route you go, obviously. By going Blacksmith, you do miss out on the goggles from engineering if they are available in TBC Classic, and the chicken trinket, which gives a 5% proc on haste. And you also lose out on being able to weave bombs, which is one of the small things that makes a rogue able to do more DPS than what people think a rogue can do.
All right, and does it matter? Is it's still the same protocol where it's like slow weapon main hand, fast weapon offhand?
Yes.
Right.
Ideally, you want 2.6 in main hand, unless you can get slower and not lose too many stats. Then that's basically the one you want to go.
Okay.
In terms of offhand, you want to have the fastest one possible, while staying in the. I'm going to go more in depth in this in the talent section, but
Yeah.
ideally, you want to be sword spec'd. So as long as you can have between 1.4 to 1.5 offhand, you should be safe.
Okay. Well, let's smash for talents. Let's jump in. I've got the talent menu open. Hopefully you can see it.
Yeah, I'll have to. It's currently playing. Let's see. I can't see it from Discord stream. If that's what you mean.
No, I'll be on Twitch.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, so
all right. So
where do I go
basically,
first?
what you want to start out with is filling out the combat one, because that's our main specialization. You basically want to have 2 out of 2 improved sinister strike, since that will be your main combo point generator.
Yeah.
To get down to the next one, it's kind of a toss up. You don't really use gouge at all in PvE, so the 3% increased dodge is in my opinion better, since you don't ever use gouge for anything in PvE.
Yeah,
So I put 3
I
points
also
into.
prefer it as well.
Yeah.
And then?
Now, in the next bit, you obviously want to have 5 out of 5 in precision, which is the one below lightning reflexes.
Yeah.
And then you want to have the 3 out of 3 in the slice and dice all the way to the left.
Yep.
Simply because, obviously, well, you want the hit. You are a rogue. You want to be white hit capped. In order to reach that, you need the 5 out of 5 precision. And slice and dice is one of our main DPS abilities, even though it doesn't do any DPS, if you know what I mean, because our main damage comes from auto attacks.
Yeah, you don't have to burn your combo points and slice of dice as much, do you?
Exactly. Now, as for the next section, that's where it kind of gets very personalized, I'd say. Me personally, I love going into reduced duration, a cooldown on evasion, which is the far left one. So I usually go 2 out of 2 in that, and then 1 out of 2 in the sprint removing snares.
Right.
Some people do go 2 out of 2 in removing snares and 1 in endurance, but that's just more of a personal playstyle.
Okay.
In the next section, with weapon damage being auto attacks being our main damage, you go 5 and 5 in the offhand specialization, doable specialization. Sorry, which increases the damage of your offhand, which is obviously very, very good and very, very useful. Things can change here depending on what items you have. If you are going for the complete biz route, you're going to be sword spec'd, which means that you're not going to go into improved daggers or improved fist weapons or improved maces. This is purely as a sword spec, which means you'd go 5 out of 5 in sword specialization and then 1 in blade flurry.
And then the expertise, I presume.
Yes, and the right one. I'm sorry, I don't remember the names of them. It's just kind of on the back, just putting them in. Yeah, you basically go 2 out of 2 in weapon expertise, because expertise is a very, very big stat for a rogue and very, very hard to come by. The only time you can get expertise is like a few quest items here and there, and the ring from Lower City, which is there's just better alternatives. Even though expertise is a very good stat for us, it just gets outscaled.
And do we max out aggression?
Yes.
Then adrenaline rush, I presume.
Yes, and then you go for the vitality, I think it's called, the one to the left of blade flurry.
Yep.
Sorry, of adrenaline rush.
Is it 2 points? Yeah, to get down a tree.
Yes.
And combat potency.
Exactly, and then the nerves of steel, I think it's called.
Wait. Oh, so we're going for nerves of steel rather than surprise attacks.
No, I meant surprise attacks. Sorry.
Oh, that's all right.
I just thought that was what it was called. That's my bad.
Yeah. It's difficult to remember all the names, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I'm looking at them now, like I don't know half of the names of these. Okay, so after this, we are going straight into the assassination tree. We're going 5 out of 5 in malice. That one I do remember. And then you go into murder.
Yeah.
That delay on stream is really weird. You basically go 2 out of 2 in murder, and then you go the one to the left, 3 out of 3, which is called, I can't remember.
Ruthlessness. So 3 out of 3 ruthlessness, and then relentless strikes. Is it?
Yes.
Basically, and then you very, very similar to how it is in Classic WoW.
Oh, I haven't really played Classic, so I wouldn't know.
And then maxing out lethality, I presume.
Yes, and you max out lethality, and this is kind of where your position in a raid changes your spec. Because if you are the only rogue, which you presumably are going to be, because I'll get into that later. You are going to be running improved exposed armor, because that's going to be your one utility to a raid.
Right.
So if you are, let's say, 2 rogues and the other guy has improved exposed armor, instead of going 2 out of 2 in improved exposed armor, you would run 4 in the next poison. And this is where it changes depending on where your gear state is and how much haste you have. Because let's say that you do have enough haste to actually have instant in offhand. You want to go vile poison. But if you are at a stage where you do not have the haste for it, that's when you want to go improved poisons, because if you don't, your deadly poison will eventually drop off, which is going to be a massive DPS loss. So you kind of want to make sure, and by improved poison does make sure that you don't drop deadly poison.
Right.
But the ideal cookie cutter build when you are, let's say, tier 4 bis geared, would be 2 out of 2 improved exposed armor and then 2 in vile poison. That's the cookie cutter spec.
In that vile poison, yeah.
Yes.
Right, and there we go. Right, next topic. Oh no, first of all, is there any alternative builds that you can play? Like, I'm presuming Mutilate PvE spec. Let's talk just very briefly on how, how good or how bad it is, and, does it actually have a place?
I'll be completely honest with you. I have never spec'd Mutilate other than to test it. And in Sims, I mean, it does not too bad, but considering that as a rogue in a raid environment, the only thing you bring is improved exposed armor, and at the beginning, mediocre damage, unless you do like a few tricks to cheese the damage meter. Mutilate just doesn't hold up. I mean, Mutilate is fine in 5-mans. It's actually better than combat in 5-mans in some scenarios. But combat will always edge it out.
Right.
If you want to put a percentage on it, I'd say roughly like 10 to 12% worse than combat.
Oh, that's interesting. So, let's say, for instance, you get extremely unlucky with sword drops, but you get very lucky with dagger drops. Would it be better to go mutilate other than typical combat spec?
No. Well, if you mean main hand, then you're kind of forced to go mutilate, I guess. If you do have let's say Melchizar from Prince Melchizar in Karazhan, which is a 1.8 dagger. If you have, let's say, 2 of those, then yeah, you'd obviously go mutilate. But if you have a fine enough sword main hand, but can't get, let's say, Latros from Black Morass to drop, which is a sword offhand, and you only have a dagger, then you'd go for dagger sword spec, which is the exact same build as I showed before, except for instead of having some of the talent points in. So yeah, I'll just let the screen update here.
So you take it out of sword spec.
Yeah.
And just put it into daggers instead.
No. You keep the sword one. As I said, this is if you have a sword main spec.
Right.
Sorry, as a sword main hand and a dagger offhand, you would basically remove the 2 points from vile poisons. You're going to remove 1 point from nerves of steel to put into daggers. So you're going to have 3 out of 5.
Right. Okay. So you put 3 out of 5 in them. Okay.
Yes.
Anyway, let's move on to talking about the stats priority. I presume there's a guide on Silent Shadows that we can look at as well.
I'm pretty sure it has been posted. If not, it will be posted very, very soon. But I can just do a quick overview of them here if you want.
Well, I'll show the website anyway. But yeah, let's do an overview of the best stats.
Okay, so technically the best stat for a rogue is expertise. But since expertise is not something you can gem for, and you can't really get it on gear other than a few pieces, it's normally disregarded, especially in tier 4 content. In tier 5 content is where it gets a little bit better, since you have the belt from Lady Vash, which has expertise, which helps a ton. But before that, you don't really get it, especially not the lower city trinket. The name has eluded me, I'm sorry. But the lower city exalted trinket, which only has expertise on it, it looks very, very good if you sim it on a rogue. But since you don't have any AP hit, crit, or anything on it, you only have, I think it's 24 agi and 25 expertise, something like that, it actually ranks lower than usual rings from Karazhan.
Okay.
Okay, so if we disregard expertise, the stat, the what do you call it? Stat priority, I guess you call it.
Yeah.
Would be hit as an absolute first one, which is like that's what you need. You need at least 316 in a raid environment. You only need 300 if you're alliance and you have the Draenei buff, but that does require a hunter, paladin, or warrior to be Draenei, which is kind of rare. So usually you just go for 316. And once you have that, you kind of want to have haste as a secondary one, and then crit, and that you have on penetration as the last one.
Right. So we don't go on.
No, sorry, I was just go on.
So we don't really prioritize armor penetration that much.
Not until later in the expansion.
Okay, not until later. So does the stat priority change later on when you could have more armor penetration available?
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Your stat priorities, well, not your stat priorities. Sorry, your stat weights, they do change depending on what content you're in. But as for tier 4 and tier 5, your stat weights are that expertise is 2.65, haste is 2.13, hit is 2.14, crit is 1.72, and then agi is 2.19. That's kind of the ones that you have to keep in mind when you do compare two items to each other.
Yeah, so guys, I will put all the precise stat weights in the description of the video to make it much easier for you. But anyway, let's talk about some half-decent starter gear that we can get from quests. I'll open a database. Let me get one here. No, this link here. So what kind of gear can we get basically without even doing any dungeons, like kind of pre-dungeon quests, because obviously there's a few difficult dungeons out there, like, Shattered Halls, Shadow Labyrinth, which you do actually need some half-decent gear for. So what can we get
you
very
can
easily?
you can get very, very good gear as a rogue without stepping foot in a dungeon. To start off, you have Kaelan Signet, which is Kaylan, and then apostrophe S, and then Signet. I can see you're typing it up, so I'll just spell
For some
it out.
reason, the database is broken. You might have to link me.
I have a database you can use here. This is like my go-to database.
Is it in chat? You might have to put it in a Twitch chat.
Oh, okay. I'll put it here.
Right. I'll just put everything up. You link me. So is this from a? So this is from a quest in Neverstorm.
Yes. It has one that is almost it is identical. The only thing that changes is the icon, which is Slayer's Mark of Redemption, I believe it's called. Let me confirm that. Yes, Slayer's Mark of Redemption, which is the exact same stats, so you don't really need to pull it up. Right. But that is from a quest chain in Shadowmoon Valley.
So you can get two of these?
Yes, exactly.
Right.
They are very, very easy to obtain as long as you just put in like an hour or two to do the quests, and you have a group for the elite quests and stuff. So those are very, very good and will not be replaced until you enter Karazhan. So they're very good for dungeons and heroics and stuff. Cool. Now, other than that, you have a cloak from Nagrand, which is called it's a poncho. Wait, I should have looked it up beforehand. That's my bad. Let me see here.
Delicate green poncho.
Delicate green poncho, exactly.
There we go. Got it here.
Perfect. Now that's also a very, very good starter cloak. As for shoulders, if you are Alliance, you actually have a quest in Shattered Halls, which give you a pair of shoulders that will only get replaced by Wastewalker. They're called Expedition Shoulder Pads. I really should have looked this up beforehand.
It's fine.
Expedition Scouts E-Pallets is what they're called.
I've got them here.
Which is also like they are very, very solid. When I was playing on Endless 1.0, I basically used these until Mount Hyjal, I think.
Wow.
Give or take. Well, that's
So
just
I
because
can see a
I didn't
trend
get.
that we're trying to get as much hit gear as humanly possible from, your basic quest gear.
Yes, exactly.
So, say for instance, we have, when TBC launches, we have people running around doing random quests. What people should be looking at is which quest rewards are giving green or blue hit chance gear, because that's going to be, provide the best DPS under the cap.
Exactly. Like hit is the name of the game early on, 100%.
And if you're lucky enough to find an expertise piece, I'm pretty sure there is some expertise piece from Quest, then you definitely want it.
Yeah, there are a pair of legs which are pretty good, and they will not be replaced before you get Wastewalker pants, or until you enter Karazhan and get Skulker's Grief from Netherspite. So they are pretty solid. They're called Elec something.
Right.
I can't really find them, but yeah, they I think it's 22 expertise, some strength, some agi. So they're quite solid, but they do not have hit, which is kind of the downside of it. But that is one of the ways to get expertise early on.
Okay.
There are also quests in Sangamarsh in the Steam Vaults dungeon where you take the quest outside that actually gives you a helm, which is very, very good and won't
I
be
think I'm
replaced.
looking at it right now. Is it Helm of the Claw?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
The reason for it being good is because it is one of the only ones in the early game outside of raids who has a metagem. And metagems are very, very strong for rogues, especially if Relentless Earth Siege Diamond is in the game.
Right.
If it is, then metagems are absolutely huge.
Yeah, because they increase your stat by a particular percentage.
You get 12 agi and you gain increased 3% damage on crits, I believe it is.
There you go, yeah. So I presume everything on Silent Shadows is tip-top and up to date. Very talking about absolute pre-raid, the best in slot gear.
It should be. I was one who made it, so I hope so.
All right. So basically, guys, I don't think we need to go over this in depth. You can check it out in the description of this video. One thing I want to bring up, I guess, is the main thing we care about is the weapons. So here I have the Blade Fist. And
I can see you're looking at the PvP section right now. If you just scroll down a bit.
Just forget that ever happened. So we're looking at the Vindicator's brand with the Latros shifting swords. We're definitely going for swords.
Yes, 100%. The extra hit is just so good, especially because your second to last talent in combat is called Combat Potency, which gives you a chance on offhand hits to restore some of your energy. And having the extra proc from auto attacks gives you a higher chance of getting the energy back, which is an overall very large DPS increase.
Okay. And we're definitely going for Primal Strike. So does this mean, well, we'll probably talk about this later, that, going level working is absolutely the best in slot for a rogue?
Well, yeah, but as I said earlier, with the drums being changed to not require leatherworking, you can actually skip this, because going the Primal Strike route compared to going for the some of the items that drop from heroics, it's a very marginal increase,
Right.
but you do spend a lot of gold and time getting it. So it's not 100% necessary. Like, it will still be better than the alternatives, but since you no longer need leatherworking for drums, that kind of decreases the value even more, if you know what I mean.
Okay. But what if what trinkets could we pick up from quests which are really, really good, just in case that we get extremely lucky with trinket proc? Because I know of rogues who've farmed the one from Black Morass over 50 times and it hasn't dropped. So could we get anything half decent from quests?
There is a trinket, which is called Core of Arcalos, I think, which is like a worse version of Brooch.
Right.
I'll write it to you in chat here so you can see, just so you can look it up. I think that's how it's spelled. Other than that, you have another hit trinket, which gives you AP on use. Unfortunately, the name has eluded me, but it is a quest chain from Netherstorm. So like a lot of the gear that is good for a rogue pre-raid and before you even set foot in the dungeon is from Netherstorm. So Netherstorm is a very, very good place for a rogue to do quests.
I do remember picking up this Core of Arkelos for my rep pally. It was really nice.
Yeah, it's a very good starter trinket, definitely.
I can very quickly find the Netherstorm one for you guys. If we go to Outland, Netherstorm, get that out of the way. Was it a group quest?
I'm fairly certain it's a group quest, yeah. Let me search here.
Arkelos is a Netherstorm one, apparently.
Yeah. That's why I said, like, most of the good stuff is from... wait, sorry, no. The one I was thinking of is in Terracar, the hit one. I have it here. Terracar's Tablet of Precision.
I do know that one.
That's the one I meant.
Is that from... You have to kill that big bird, don't you?
Yeah. I think you have to do, like, the where you kill, like, 12 of the bone birds, whatever, and then you kill the mate, and then you...
Yeah, I do remember that one. Right. Let's move on to best in slot, enchanting and gemming priority.
So gemming priority will always be hit, assuming you're below cap.
Below the cap.
And if you somehow manage to be over cap without gems, then I would very much like to know how you did that. So if usually you would use the stat weights in order to determine whether or not you should go for a what do you call it, socket bonus. And if you are at a point where you don't want to have it, let's say it gives 6 stamina or something like that, then you don't go for it at all. You would only go for a set bonus if it gives either hit or a lot of edgy. Other than that, you're basically going to have 8 hit gems in everything, except for when you go for set bonuses, where they are red and yellow. Then you would have 8 hit in one, which is a yellow, and you would have 4 agi, 4 hit in the other one, which is a orange one.
So it's really just a question of, using the formula to work out which stat provides the most DPS, and then, if you can socket that stat, it's going to provide the biggest DPS because of like how it converts, and then trying to calculate roughly in your head, like, how much extra DPS am I going to go for that socket bonus, or am I going to, just get the same without going for the socket bonus?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then obviously, I guess what you're trying to do is trying to get as much hit in your gems as possible, so you don't have to, pick hit gear, I presume.
Well, both yes and no, because a lot of the tier 4 items and pre-raid biz and quest items for rogue, some of them do have hit, but they have very, very low agi or AP.
Right.
So you kind of want to have, like, you have a fine line where you kind of want to be at a certain point in terms of hit and AP, because crit you don't worry about too much this early. It's all about all about AP and hit. Let's say you are 50-50 pre-raid biz, give or take. You're probably going to be at around 17% hit with around 1500 attack power. That's kind of the sweet spot before you start getting full pre-raid biz and tier 4 geared. So as long as you are at those stages, then you're perfectly fine.
Right. So what about enchants? Like, what are all
enchants
the best in
enchants are actually kind of straightforward. You have the Cenarian Expedition one, which is 34 attack power and 16 hit to the head slot. Right. Then you have the Aldor Exalted, which you also get your weapon from, which is 30 AP and 10 crit to shoulders. Then you have 12 agility on cloak, 6 stats to chest, 24 AP to wrist. You have 15 agi to gloves, and you have the Leatherworker Enchants, which is 50 AP and 12 crit to legs. In terms of boots, you have two choices. You can either go for dexterity, which is 12 agi, or you can go for cat swiftness, which is 6 agi and a bit of move speed. Since you do move a buttload as a rogue in tier 4 and tier 5, and tier 6 for that matter, the cat swiftness is actually better because the distance that you have to travel, the less distance you have to travel means you have more uptime on the boss, and in the end, cat's swiftness will actually be better than the extra 6 agility you get, just simply because you get back to the boss even quicker.
Right. And what about the shorter enchant from Naxxramas? Is that just like tiny little better than the Eldor one?
It's better than the honored one, but it's worse than the exalted one.
All right. Okay.
That's only if you're Eldor. If you're Scryer, I believe the next one is better.
So this 30 flat attack power and 10 crit is better than 26 attack power and 14 crit.
Yes.
Right. Okay, that's another thing I didn't know. And then next thing we need to talk about is best in slot professions. If we're if absolutely no life thing, we're trying to optimize our DPS in a raid, what is the optimal professions to go for?
Usually, I would say leatherworking and engineering. But if you are, as I spoke about earlier, once you go into tier 4, you do replace the primal strike. So you don't really need the leatherworking anymore, especially not with drums being off leatherworking requirement.
Right.
Then I would personally go for engineering, simply for the 5% haste trinket that you can use before a fight and then swap trinket, and the bombs you can get. And I would actually go enchanting till I have my best in slot rings. I would enchant them, then drop enchanting and pick up jewel crafting. That's kind of how I would go about it.
So would you go back to jewel crafting just for a moneymaker or something else?
No, for the increased gems.
Oh, right. Yeah, it makes sense. Right, next thing, absolutely best in slot consumables.
Okay, so as for consumables, and this is where you're able to shine as a rogue, so to say. Because as a rogue, if you intend on having a lot of money, forget it. Because you are going to be using a lot of gold if you want to be competitive on the meters. Basically, without consumables, you are going to be a worse enhancement shaman. Rogue is a class that benefits the most in the game from stuff like haste, which is a hard stat to come by unless you have proper setup groups with drums, bloodlust, and stuff like that. So what you want to do is on cooldown, you're going to be using haste potions, which gives you, I think it's 400 haste rating. Don't quote me on that though. You're going to be using scrolls of agility and scrolls of strength 5, which gives you 20 agi and 20 strength. You're going to be using Flask of Relentless Rage, which gives you 120 AP. You are going to be using, obviously, drums of battle. Ideally, you want to have 4 drums of battle. Well, this is with, like, before it was changed. I haven't read what it was changed to, but let's assume that it's still 30-second duration and 2-minute cooldown. Then you want to have 5 drummers in your group. You want to have 4 drums of battle and 1 drums of war that you can rotate in when cooldowns are up. Other than that, you want to have your poisons, obviously. You want to have weight stones for bosses that are poison immune. And I don't think I forgot anything. Let me just double check here to be sure.
What about Elixir of Demon Slaying?
Yes, exactly. Okay, so on bosses that are demon slaying is a lot better than a Relentless Rage. So if you are a complete min-maxer, you are going to be swapping off your flask to Elixir of the Demon Slaying on bosses that are demon. And then you would switch back to a flask. Like, for instance, let's say in Black Temple, you go you enter the dungeon, you go to Nagentas, you have a Relentless Flask on. Relentless Assault Flask on, because first boss is just a normal beast. You kill him, you go to Supremus, he's a demon, you put on Demon Slaying, And then after that, you go to Akama. He's a normal mob, so you put on Relentless Assault again. But that is obviously only if you're a complete min-maxer.
Yeah.
It's perfectly fine just running Relentless Assault. So yeah, that's kind of where the most of your gold goes.
And did we cover food buffs?
Oh no, sorry. As for food buffs, if they are in the game, you are generally going to be running Spicy Hot Talbot,
Yeah.
which is a 20 hit food. If it is not in the game, you're going to be running for, I believe it's called Warp Burger, which is 20 agi. And then I obviously also forgot to add Thistle Tea, which is only 40 energy in TBC, but it is definitely worth it.
Oh, that's another thing I didn't know yet. Ever, what about Flame Cap and Oil of Immolation on this guide?
Flame Cap is also a decent alternative, but it's just simply not as good as Thistle Tea because they share the cooldown.
Right.
So ideally, you always go for Thistle Tea.
Fair enough. Right, let's move on to the next section, which we're going to be talking about the actual rotation. And I think I've got a little clip here of Staydown doing a precise rotation. Let's have a look. Put this on in the background. So, you know, well, first of all, let's not go too crazy. Let's talk about what is going to be your most, the basic rotation 90% of the time.
Okay, so if we say the basic of the basic, which is basically what you do just to be there in the raid, your opener is always going to be the same. You're going to Sinister Strike twice, then into a Slice and Dice. You're going to pop your cooldowns like Adrenaline Rush, Blade Flurry, your Haste Potions and whatnot, and then a Drum. And then you're going to Sinister Strike 5 times, get Improved Exposed Armor up, Sinister Strike 5 times, get Slice and Dice, and then you would just keep rotating that. Now, there is a different one, which is it does require you knowing your character because some things can go wrong. So you kind of need to, well, it sounds weird because it's kind of basic, but you need to master it because it can easily go wrong. And what you would do in that is that in between your Slice and Dice and Exposed Armor, you would put Rupture, depending on how much time you have. Now, without anything up, it takes roughly between 16 to 17 seconds to get 5 combo points from 0. So being able to have a 1 combo point, 2 combo point, 3 combo point Rupture in between your normal rotation gives you that little extra DPS, which for anyone other than a rogue would not be noticeable. But if you were a rogue versus another rogue who didn't do it, you would be able to see the difference.
Right.
So that's kind of the basic rotation. If you are doing the Rupture rotation, it all comes down to you knowing your class, like you knowing how much energy regen you get on average, and stuff like that. So it's really a learn by doing kind of thing, which I also portray in the video.
And are we going to be, prioritizing Rupture when we only have like a short amount of time that we can spend on the boss? We have to quickly switch to a different target, to leave dots on the boss.
That kind of depends. If you have to leave, but the hunters, for instance, don't have to leave, then you would always focus on Improved Exposed Armor, since hunters are the biggest. I almost swore hunters are the
That's
biggest
fine.
DPS in, in TBC. So you kind of want to make sure that they do as much as they can. Now, if everyone has to leave the target, and you have, let's say, 2 combo points left, and you have a full Slice and Dice, then I just throw a Rupture and run to the other target. But let's say my Slice and Dice was down to 2 or 3 seconds, then what I would do is that I would have the target that we were leaving still targeted, and while running to the second target, right before hitting the new target, I would Slice and Dice, so it gets a new fresh rotation duration, and then just keep attacking the new target.
Right. Is there a place for a cheeky stealth opener from time to time, or do you just run in with Sinister Strike?
In a pure raid environment, usually how you want to do it is that you want to stealth as close, like very greedily close to the boss. If obviously if your tanks have MD, if they don't, you should never do this.
Right.
But if they do, you want to stealth as close as humanly possible to the rogue, sorry, to the boss, in order to Sinister Strike as soon as possible, which basically like gives you a second or a second and a half more uptime than you would normally get.
Okay.
But in terms of opening from stealth, you rarely ever open with Garrote, because it's 50 energy, and the damage it does is about the same as a Sinister Strike crit. So it's just not worth it.
Ah, I see. And what about, little tricks, advanced principles that we can, use to push for DPS even further than, the average rogue?
Well, first and foremost, play incredibly greedy, and I mean that.
Right.
Play incredibly greedy. Let's take High King Mulgar in Gruul's Lair, for instance. He does a whirlwind effect. Don't care about it. Pop evasion, even though there's a, let's say, 20-15% chance you're going to die, stand in it. Do your damage. When your evasion is like 1 or 2 seconds left, you run out. Like, as a rogue, in order to succeed, you have to play incredibly selfish and incredibly greedy. And if you don't, you will not succeed as like this is going to sound arrogant, but like as a top rogue. You
Right.
need to play incredibly selfish. Other than that, I've been told this doesn't work on Classic, so I'm not sure if this is just a private server thing. But that thing is trinket swapping, which is where you basically have an unused trinket that you use in your initial opener with all your cooldowns, and as soon as the duration is over, you have a macro that basically stop attacks, vanishes, swaps the unused trinket for an unhit trinket, and attacks again. So it does everything in like 0.5 seconds. You don't see it. You just see yourself vanish, and it swaps the trinket. That way, you kind of get the max out of the unused trinket while getting the max from the unhit trinket.
Right.
But
I
yeah, as I
mean,
said, it doesn't work in Classic. So if it works in TBC Classic, I don't know, but it does work on private servers.
yeah, I mean, I personally, yeah, I've never been able to get it to work, but I might have not had the like absolute best macro in the world. But and what about anything else?
Anything else? Well, I mean, there is the
Sorry.
thing that I see. Sorry?
Well, I was just going to quickly ask about, bloodlust timing.
Do you mean like when you get it or when you want it?
Yeah, so like, do we pop the haste potion, for instance? Do we obviously we have slice and dice up or like 100% of the time, but do we pop a haste? Is it better to pop haste potion with bloodlust or heroism?
Yes, it is, because the more haste you have, the more you benefit from it.
Right.
So you kind of want to time your cooldowns. Let's say you are on a fight that is 7 minutes long. That means you're going to have the initial adrenaline rush, and you're going to have one more. And it also means you're going to have, on average, 3 blade flurries and trinket uses, haste potions, and stuff like that. So ideally, what you want to do is that you obviously use them in the opener, and the reason for that is you want to have exposed armor up as soon as possible, because that is your one utility. After that, you would kind of time it for when you know that you have uptime of the full duration. And if you were to get bloodlust, you would kind of save it, the adrenaline rush. This is because you are going to have 2 of them. So the second one is kind of, you don't have to use it as soon as it comes up, because you're only going to get that one. So you don't need to push the timer. So you would kind of wait to push that with the third blade flurry. So you'd have to wait on the adrenaline rush for another minute.
Right. What about actual adrenaline rush timing? Like, do we want to time it, precisely before an energy tick to get the most advantage out of it?
Yes.
Right.
Basically, the way to go for it in the opener, as I also go through in the video, you want to use your cooldowns, and then have an energy watch timer. So as soon as the energy procs, you want to use the adrenaline rush, because that way you get the full amount of the adrenaline rush increased regen, but you also get the maximum amount of the 15 seconds of adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
So you don't lose you you don't lose time on it, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And what about timing on, abilities? So obviously, like when, well, in classic anyway, when you get a sword specialization proc, the auto attack is totally reset. So what you try to do is use Sinister Strike like a millisecond after your auto attack, so that when you do clip it, it clips it back, a split second rather than clipping it back, at 2 seconds, before your next weapon hit comes in.
Wind Fury and Sword Specialization does not reset swing timer in TBC.
So
So
it doesn't happen at
unfortunately,
all.
no. I wish it did, because that would make the rogue able to do even more DPS. But unfortunately, it's not a thing.
Well, I mean, until you said that, I was quite happy about it because I do find it very irritating after time Sinister Strike all the time. So
Yeah, I mean, I would love it to work and to be a thing in TBC Classic, but unfortunately, it's not.
is there any last little cheeky tricks before we start talking about reputation?
Hmm. I mean, there's not really any cheap tricks, as to say, for rogues. It all just comes down to playing that greedy playstyle. And once you've mastered that, you'll be able to push out like the last few DPS that the other rogues don't if they don't do it. So it's just knowing your class to the absolute max, and knowing how much you can push yourself without dying.
Yeah.
That is literally the best advice I can give you. Um, Other than that, make sure that you can do the, in quotation marks, advanced rotation in terms of weaving ruptures. Once you've learned that, you're also going to see a spike in DPS. Knowing how to snap your slice and dice is also a very big thing. Basically, what that means is that, as I said, it takes between 16 to 17 seconds to get 5 combo points. So let's say you have 1 combo point and your exposed armor is 15 seconds. What you would normally do, this is obviously only in a scenario where you've already done something wrong, because you should never be in a situation like that. What you would do is basically use 1 Sinister Strike, get up to 2 combo points, use Slice and Dice to get the 12-second duration. At this point, your exposed armor is around 14 seconds. You would just straight 5 combo points to the exposed armor and let Slice and Dice drop for like 1 or 2 seconds, and then do 1 combo point, Slice and Dice to keep the duration, and then just keep going back up. And at this point, you should be able to get a 5 combo point Slice and Dice. But then again, this is very much learned by doing, which is a lot of how the rogue playstyle is in TPC.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to practice each fight individually, because you have to, I guess you have to adapt to your actual rotation on different, boss encounters. You can't just, go in there with like a one for all, best in slot rotation. You have to change it quite a lot. Now,
Yeah, exactly. It's always very, very dynamic.
yeah,
Another thing I forgot to go over is that you also have a kit which allows you to play greedy, as I said, with like the hiking Mulgar evasion stuff. You also have stuff like on Shade of Iran, or on Prince, where you can cloak the debuffs and pray you don't get 10%ed, which is kind of like a meme on my stream, because I always get 10%ed.
right.
Basically, Cloak of Shadows has like 90% chance to immune you to casts, which allows you to play more greedy, but you will look stupid 10% of the time.
Yeah. So 1 out of 10 times you might look like an
Yeah.
absolute idiot. So, can you also? I remember, for instance, in vanilla in my guild, rogue used vanish in like a similar style. Is there any opportunity where you can use vanish to avoid damage?
Yes, there is. For instance, now that we're talking a lot about tier 4 content, since that is the first thing launching. Let's say stuff like Shade of Iran. If you don't interrupt well enough and he actually goes down to drink, he will do a Pyroblast afterwards, which does a lot of damage. You can basically neglect that damage by vanishing as soon as the cast is in the air. You can do that with every boss as long as the cast is in the air. So vanish has a lot of niche uses, but it is very, very, well, not risky, but it can be risky to do it like that, because if you do need a threat reset, then you don't have it anymore. You do still have feint, but using feint will cost you quite a lot of DPS.
Right. So I think we definitely talked enough about DPS. Let's take it down a notch and talk about something a bit more simple, the reputation priority. So what top three reputations that you should prioritize as a rogue?
Okay, so early on, I would definitely say it kind of comes down to whether or not you're lucky or not, because that kind of changes what you would prioritize. Ideally, you want to have the first reputation you want to get is Aldor, which is basically just fell armaments or the Mark of Sagaras. So that's like something you can buy, not really farm. In terms of reputations that are farmable, I would get Lower City to Revered ASAP, because that allows you to go into Orkney Crypts Heroic and Manatomes Heroic, which is where your Wastewalker's shoulders and legs, respectively, drop.
Right.
So that is priority numero uno. Other than that, you kind of want to have Cenarian Expedition, because that is where you get your head enchant, which is also quite big. And then the third reputation is kind of up in the air, because there's not really anything that you desperately need, so to say. You can go for Keepers of Time because you get a really, really nice belt from there. If you don't go the Primal Strike route, then that's what I would do. I would go for the Keepers of Time to get the belt from, I believe it's Black Morass Heroic.
Yeah. I mean, you basically get Keepers of Time rep pretty easily from doing other quests anyway, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think you get reviewed from doing the quest chain and then two Black Morasses, I think, give or take a few.
And before we move on to a quick Q&A from the chat, is there absolutely anything else that you want to add that we think about we've missed? Anything?
Well, there is one thing. Basically, there was also a lot of comments in the other video on your YouTube video. Rogue is a mediocre class. I'll put that out there right now. But you can make it a good class if you're allowed to be. So basically, as I said earlier, you gain the most of any class in the game from Haste. And if you are a guild that is semi-serious, you're usually going to have the same setup with like hunter. You're going to have 4 hunters group 1, 4 BM hunters in group 1, with either a druid or a feral druid or a enhancement shaman, and then you're going to have like a survival in group whatever. They don't matter, they're just there for the buffing. And then in group 2 you're going to have a red paladin, enhancement shaman, a rogue, an arms warrior, and a wait, what did I say already?
Arms,
It doesn't matter.
enhancement, rep, rogue.
Yeah, those are like the 4 keys. Like ideally, you would also put in a feral druid, but the chance of playing 2 ferals is kind of non-existent. And if you allow your rogue to succeed, he will succeed. But it all comes down, like, you can go from one encounter being below enhancement shamans to the next one being just below hunters, like being on par with warlocks. It all depends on if you're allowed to succeed or not from your guild.
Right. So you just need big boons from everyone else, basically.
Yeah, sorta. The better your guild is, the better the rogue will perform.
Right. That makes sense. Now, yeah, let's open up to the chat. Let's actually look at the chat now. How is everyone? You're doing well. Now you can absolutely ask any questions that you want to Staydown. We'll do it for at least about 5 minutes. So I'll just leave you to answer whatever you want.
Okay, so this is the guy that I kind of memed about in the beginning with the Warglaives to Warriors. He says, I want to continue on Warglaive discussion. I'm playing Rogue and need to know what to tell my guild, the reason for why Rogue should get it and not one of the Fury Warriors. Okay, so the main reason why you want to have a Rogue with the Warglaive is, as I mentioned, you benefit an insane amount from Haste. Warriors, they do gain DPS from Haste, but it's nowhere near what you would, what a Rogue would gain. Besides that, a warrior will actually replace the Warglaives in tier 6.5 with the weapon from, I think it's a mace from Kil'jaeden, and an offhand somewhere from Somewhat Plateau. I'm not sure exactly where they drop. But a warrior will eventually replace the warglaives, which a rogue will not. So that's kind of why you want to give it to a rogue instead of a warrior.
That makes a lot of sense. We could carry on answering questions.
Sheep Fun says, in an ideal setup, how many rogues would you run for tier 4? Thinking of just one until tier 6 until a glaive drop, maybe an alt or two to gear them up, ready for when that happens. Okay, so usually you want to have one rogue up until tier 6. Once you enter tier 6 and it's on farm and like your main rogue, so to say, is geared, you want to bring in a second rogue in order to gear him up and get ready for tier 6.5, because in tier 6.5 is when rogues really start popping off. You have the haste that you need, granted with a proper raid group. You have the haste you need, you have the DPS you need, and you will start really popping off. And that's kind of when you put in the second rogue.
Right.
What do you think of Fury Warrior versus Rogue? Well, I mean, it's pretty easy. Rogue kind of deals more damage than a Fury Warrior. They don't need as much. Excuse me. They don't need as much gear in order to be successful. Like rogues do still need gear to be successful, but not as much as a Fury Warrior. So that's kind of the short answer of that. Ashamed asks, you mentioned good guilds making good rogues. Why should good guilds take rogues instead of 2 retri paladins? Okay, well, that is actually my guild master, so I'll just skip over that one. Let's see. Sir Madero says, hello, Fury Warrior have future in TBC. They do and they don't. Again, it kind of depends. Guilds usually run either a rogue or a Fury Warrior, and most prefer the rogue for the improved exposed armor. But if you're not in like a guild that's pushing for Realm First or World First or kill timers and stuff like that, you can definitely succeed as a Fury Warrior. Like they do more than fine damage. You just need, again with the rogue, the same opportunity to be utilized. Let's see here. Seo asks, question for Q&A. Rogue's wet dream in BT to pop off. Okay, so this is a friend of mine. And there are some trash packs in front of Terran Gorefiend which have 0 armor. And they are very, very fun to hit with a Blade Flurry. And all your cooldowns once you have Warglaives. You will do a lot of DPS. So that is the answer to that, Seo.
What kind of damage could you do in that situation?
Oh, mate, I've top 9k.
9k, I thought so.
Mm-hmm. I think Snurk has a clip of it at some point, somewhere in his VODs. Okay, Silius asks, if you had Nax gear, example, Kiss of the Spider, when would you replace that 200 haste on use trinket? Having Kiss of the Spider, I would definitely keep it. And if trinket swapping was something that was possible, I would definitely use it as my main on use to swap into something different. So yeah, I would use it if trinket swapping was available. If it wasn't, I would be swapping it out for Bloodlust Brooch and Hourglass. Either one, depending on what your other second trinket is. Let's see if there's anything more. Where does people find good rogue guide / content? We have a Discord, and by we, I mean Silent Shadows, which is the rogue TBC kind of hub on Discord and website, where you can get any single question asked, or you can get any single information that you need. I'm in there myself. I am quite active in terms of what do you call it? Answering questions and stuff like that. So if you are a rogue and you're looking to play rogue in TBC Classic, I would definitely join Silent Shadows on Discord.
Yeah, and it will be linked below if you're watching on YouTube.
Ideal comp for Rogue in 2s, 3s. Need to push that 1850 we discussed for the Season 1 weapons. Okay, this comes down to like what you prefer to play. RMP, which is a Rogue Mage Priest, is a very, very strong combo in 3s. Rogue Lock Priest is also very strong. They both have counters and combos they counter. So it kind of depends on more your playstyle, where RMP is more setup heavy, whereas like you run around stun things and you get a setup kill. And RLP is more, okay, well, if we see a priest, we rush him and kill him. So it really depends on your playstyle. Now, as for 2s, you have Rogue Lock, you have Rogue Mage, you have Rogue Priest, you have Rogue Druid. Rogue Druid is a very strong combo, but not until late Season 2 and onwards. The Druid does not have the survivability yet in order to make the combo extremely good. In Season 1 and early Season 2, I would say Rogue Mage and Rogue Priest is... Rogue Mage and Rogue Lock is the best combo for Rogue. You can play the other combos, don't get me wrong. You can play them perfectly fine and even go Glad if you want to. But those two are the easiest ones, so to say. If gold was not an issue, would you take the Drake Hammer till PvP Season 2? If I did not have any... if I had unlimited gold, I would probably use Drake Hammer in PvP in Season 1, yes. The on-hit haste is kind of good and can give you a lot of surprising damage on a target. Then Gaiman asks, where is Rogue on the Prio list for DST? That really depends on your guild, because if you see in terms of who does the most damage, then Hunters obviously have the priority. If you take it from who gains the most from this trinket, then Rogues will be number one. And most people kind of see that Hunters are on top of the DPS meters, and they say, okay, well, we'll give it to the Hunters. So that kind of comes down to your guildmate.
Also boils down to, like, say for instance you got a rogue, he turns up absolutely every week, he min-maxes his character, he's got great charisma points, good high charisma stat.
Yeah.
Then he may get it over a hunter who hasn't turned up for the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. So as I said, like it all comes down to your guild and how they kind of prioritize things. Off topic, what's best Hunter 2's partner and in 3s? A really good... it kind of depends on your playstyle. Like Hunter in TBC is very, very drain based. So it's either Druid, like Hunter Druid, where you literally just drain stuff and run, or Hunter Priest, where you drain stuff and stand there. So that's kind of the two options you have. You can also play with a Rogue, which is a lot of damage. But after the initial, 18 seconds of Bestial Wrath, you can't really do much. So it kind of, again, depends on your playstyle. What about Tri-Spec? PvE spec with exposed armor and Hemo. I assume you're talking about the Harp spec. That used to be good, but after they changed preparation to not remove the cooldown of Adrenaline Rush, it got a lot worse. I mean, it's still fine, but it's just not as good as it used to be.
Right, let's take 2 more questions.
Okay. Any good gold farms as Rogue? If you are engineering, I mean, this is kind of for any class. Basically, you can craft the Sap Throttle Mode Extractor, and then once you have the goggles, you'll be able to see some clouds in the zones and Outland, and you'll be able to suck them up and get modes, which is a very, very easy and fast way of getting a lot of gold. Especially in Nagrand, you can get something called gas clouds, which is the mode of air with a lot of spawns. And as soon as I believe it's 3 of them that spawn at 8 standard points, and when those 3 are taken, they instantly respawn at one of the 8 locations. So if you have a group of 8, you can have full dominance, and they will usually almost instantly spawn. So that's one way of making a lot of good gold.
I think one last thing we do need to touch on, because I will actually timestamp this, is because someone just picked it up. What are the best actual races? Horde and Alliance side.
Wow, sorry, I didn't even cover that at all. Okay, so as for Horde, which is what I mainly play, so that's what I'll start with. In tier 4 content, Orc will actually be the best because of Blood Fury. But once you start getting weapons with higher weapon damage and more haste, then Troll will start taking over as the best racial. This usually happens in mid tier 5, which is why, which is where you kind of want to do the switch to Troll. So that's kind of how it is. Like early on, Orc, and then late game, Troll.
If you have to wait until you're low health to pop it, Berserking.
One thing you can do if you ask your healers politely is have a macro that takes off all your gear, and then right before the fight starts, you can pop Berserking and put on all your gear again, and then they can heal you all you want. That way, well, you can also just put the gear straight back on because your HP will remain the same. That way, you gain the most from the Berserking, which I believe you're around 50% at that point, which is 15% haste. Don't quote me on it. But yeah, that's one little trick in order to get most out of the Berserking. As for Alliance, the only real race for PvE is human because of the 5 expertise you get of the racial.
Yeah. I think that is definitely all we have time for. We're definitely the huge Q&A section right there. So, if you're watching on Twitch, it's probably worth quickly you shouting out all of your socials, actually, YouTube, Twitch, and everything like that, before I forget.
I mean, it's pretty much just Staydown on YouTube and not Staydown on Twitch.
And obviously, if you're on YouTube, it will be linked below. You can also check out the Silent Shadows website and the Discord, again, linked below for more rogue information. But anyway, my name is MetaGoblin. Until my next video, ciao.